I call it service roulette, happens all the time. We get into someone they don't know, they do the customer pass around pack, or they don't have permission, and we sit there waiting. It costs companies a lot of money, and it frustrates our people because we don't give them the power to make the decision and to take care of the customer.
Welcome to Experience Points, presented by our friends at Avtex, who transform customer experience through CX design and orchestration. On Experience Points, contestants earn points by answering customer experience questions and share their insight on how to make your interactions remarkable. Those points turn into dollars for the charity of their choosing. I'm Dan Gingiss.
And I'm Joey Coleman, and we'd love to introduce you to today's contestant. She had the pleasure of being the inaugural Chief Customer Officer, not only at Land's End, but also at Coldwell Banker, Allstate, and Microsoft Corporations. She's an internationally acclaimed speaker and the author of not one, not two, not three, but 4 books on customer experience. Most recently, Would You Do That to Your Mother? The Make Mom Proud standard for how to treat your customers. And she's been described as a bottle rocket wrapped in a book of customer wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Jeanne Bliss. Jeanne, welcome to Experience Points.
Thank you. Hey, nice to be with you.
We are so excited to have you here, Jeanne, also known as the godmother of customer experience. I do believe, Joey, this is the first time we've had a godmother on our show.
I do believe we've had a godfather, but not a godmother. So we are excited to have you with us.
All right, Jeanne, so you once had that chance to personally experience a pretty long line, one that was actually 3 blocks long. Can you tell us about it and what you learned from it?
Yeah, thanks. This is such a great question. For me, I had a dad who owned a Buster Brown shoe store in Des Plaines, Illinois. And he was part of the story of people's lives, like what we yearn to be when we're doing business. I mean, he shoed all of children in the moments of their life when they got their first pair of shoes, for their communion, for their birthdays. And when he retired, a line of people 3 blocks long stood to say goodbye to him, that buying shoes would never be the same. And that's really kind of a little thing I urge people to do, is to understand what's your 3 blocks long. How do you want to be remembered? Not just at the end of your business career, but all the way throughout the work you're doing with customers. After every interaction, after the hello, after the goodbye, we have an opportunity to be memory makers. So how do you want to be remembered?
Jeanne, I absolutely love that story. It's not a surprise that you would be the progeny of such an incredible example of remarkable customer experience. I love that. I mean, the thought of going to the place where you bought your shoes to celebrate the person who sold you your shoes retiring. I mean, you just don't hear about that anymore. And I absolutely love that standard that you bring to your work and to the work you do consulting with clients and speaking to audiences. Absolutely fantastic. Well, you're going to be playing for a special charity today, Jeanne. And I was wondering if you could tell us not only who you're playing for, but why you're excited to support them today.
Sure. I'm playing for the Alzheimer's Association, and it's something that affects so many people's lives. All throughout our life, we have family members who are impacted by this. And so I'm playing not only in memory of my dad and a couple of my aunts, but for the caregivers who along the line are the keepers of the memories, even as our loved ones are losing theirs. It's a really important mission, and hoping that we can get rid of this thing that impacts so many people.
Yes, it's such a great charity and a fantastic cause. And I am rooting for you. We're both rooting for you to make lots of money for the Alzheimer's Association, Jeanne. Today, we're going to be playing a game called What Happened?
In What Happened, watch the first half of an experience story. Choose what you think happens next from 4 possible endings. Answer correctly for 500 points. If incorrect, you'll be granted an extra life and the opportunity to answer from the remaining 3 endings for 250 points.
So today's story comes from Dennis Wakabayashi. Dennis is the Vice President of Customer Experience Solutions at R.R. Donnelley, and he's based in Plano, Texas. Here's the first half of Dennis's story.
I recently refinanced my house and I had to call to discuss a number of different transactions as well as reorganize some things that were having to do with our accounts. It wasn't an easy task. It was a little bit complicated. Anyway, I called the customer care number. I reached a guy named Jeff, and guess what happened?
All right, Jeanne. So what do you think happened next? Was it A, Jeff created an amazing experience. He knew all the facets about the products and options that were available for the refinancing and created a great outcome? B, he didn't seem to want to help and instead tried to upsell 2 new offerings? C, he wasn't sure what to do, so he passed Dennis on to another rep who then passed to a supervisor before things could get resolved? Or D, he appeared to solve the situation on the call, but later Dennis realized that he'd been overpromised and the whole thing fell apart. What do you think happened with this experience, Jeanne?
Well, I would say it was either B or C, but I'm going to go with C.
Jeanne, tell us why you are choosing C.
Well, I call it service roulette, happens all the time. We get into someone they don't know, they do the customer pass around pack or they don't have permission, and we sit there waiting. It costs companies a lot of money and it frustrates our people because we don't give them the power to make the decision and to take care of the customer. And it happens a lot in call centers. So that seemed like a possible logical thing that could have occurred.
Love it. So I totally understand why you might have been thinking that, Jeanne, but alas, that is not what happened. But the good news is you've got an extra life. If it wasn't C, what do you think might have happened in this scenario?
Well, let's go with what we're hoping, and our work is to encourage people to be able to make the call, be the hero. Let's go with A.
All right, so you're gonna go with the positive, amazing experience of the representative knowing all the facets about their products and options and creating a great outcome for Dennis. Is that your final answer?
Final answer.
I love it. All right, Jeanne, let's go to the video to see what happened.
Well, what happened was Jeff was amazing. I mean, this guy, he understood all their products. He knew how to look into all the different facets of our accounts to make the necessary changes. So he was empowered, one, from a policy perspective. He obviously was empowered by his teams to make whatever solutions that were needed available to us. And in fact, the customer care was so good that I had a little sidebar with Jeff about the experience, just because we're all in the industry here, and I've been watching Wells Fargo for quite a while to see how their customer care evolution would take place over the past years. And I've got to say, they're nailing it. In the midst of COVID, in the midst of the complexities of the business environment, they obviously are leaning in towards the customer. Jeff was just a delight to work with, and I can't say enough good about the customer experience at Wells Fargo these days.
Whoa, congratulations! Jeanne, you did it! Oh, I absolutely love it. I totally understood your first answer of kind of the runaround, push one person to the next. But as we can see, this was one of those beautiful examples where we got the call resolved in the first call because we had trained and educated rep. We had a trained and educated rep who knew the products inside out. Jeanne, can you speak a little bit to the importance of organizations really empowering and training their front line? You've had the chance to work with a number of enormous organizations on creating remarkable customer experiences. Could you talk a little bit about the practical nature of how that gets done?
You bet. Well, every relationship that we have with a company starts when a customer trusts a company. We trust healthcare workers to take care of us. We trust realtors to help us. But the question is, are we trusted in return? And do we feel that the people who are honoring us are trusted? And so the foundation of building what I call a beloved or an elevated company in the marketplace is giving your people enough information to know the customer, hiring them in the right way, again, in the congruence of your values, and then letting them make the call, preparing the reasons why people might need exceptions, and then proactively giving opportunities for people to decide in the moment the right thing to keep and grow that customer. Move them to customer rescue artists and to people who create peace of mind.
Well, what I thought was really cool about this example is this is a complex case. As Dennis mentioned, there were a lot of facets. There were a number of different questions which required that the agent know a lot about a lot of things. And that does take training. But when it happens, it is such a great experience because let's face it, we don't want to call customer service. We're kind of hoping we don't have to. But if we do, we want it to be quick. We want the person on the other end to be educated. We certainly don't want them passing us around to a supervisor and making us wait longer. We want it resolved in a single call. And I think that's what Wells Fargo did really well here, is that they not only educated and trained their agents, but they also empowered them, as you said, Jeanne, to get to the solution quickly so that Dennis could go about his day.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, because you've worked in a variety of different industries, as have I, and one of the things that I always think is interesting is that there are certain industries that customers want to engage with.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Starbuckses and the Disneys of the world. Mm-hmm. And then there are certain industries, and we've both worked in them, insurance, financial services, where, again, nobody wakes up in the morning hoping to talk to their insurance company. So how do we train our agents and our frontline staff to sort of appreciate and put themselves in the shoes of the customers to appreciate the fact that this customer doesn't even want to be calling us?
Well, I think that a lot of it also, Dan, is about helping people have an elevated role of the work that they do. For example, a claim agent, when I was at Allstate, one of the things we told them was, you're not a claim agent, you are a peace of mind artist. I love the word artist for some reason. And it's also about recognizing that you have an opportunity to impact the memory of that person, and not only what you do to them, but how they feel. So there's two ways to turn down a claim if you have to. One is by telling the customer how dumb they are, walking them through the mistakes they made, chatting back simply policy information. The other is starting with a life, asking how they are, making sure they understand what happened, and coaching them on how to have a better outcome next time. In both cases, you turned down the claim, but in the second one, you did it with your humanity, your humility, and you left people with the memory about the characteristics of the company and how they enable their people to take care of customers. And I think when you put people in a position to rise, to be a part of something greater than themselves, and move them out of executing tasks to delivering an experience that really improves a life, you will keep the best people, you will attract better people, and you'll grow as a result of it.
Jeanne, I love it. You know, so often on Experience Points, we talk about how customer experience and employee experience are completely intertwined. And the better the employee experience, the better the customer experience. And I think you speak to that beautifully as far as the empowering them to come forward with their humanity and connect on a personal level. You know, when we think about different industries, often I think companies will say, well, we're really good compared to the other folks in our industry. When the reality is that's not who your customers are comparing you to. They're not benchmarking you against the other insurance companies. Could you speak a little bit to what it takes as an organization to benchmark against the top customer experience providers, the Disney, you know, the Amazons, the folks that are well known, going beyond, above and beyond for their customers, how we can compare ourselves to those brands and learn from them, as opposed to just saying, well, we're the best of the not so good.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And Joey, and the thing that it also strikes me is I have a lot of B2B clients, large software organizations, manufacturers, et cetera. And what we're finally recognizing, and inside B2B companies, for example, is they're recognizing that your B2B client is a B2C client. And so their standard of life and I call it building a respect delivery machine, is through the companies that are delivering to them. And so this notion of, do you know your customer? Are you respecting their time? Are you orienting your operation around them? As you look at companies, part of the challenge is we can't all be Zappos, but we can find parts of Zappos that are, that will line up with our operation and learn from that. We're not all going to be the Ritz-Carlton, but there's things we can pull from it. The other thing I think is when companies don't do the work to be deliberate at the beginning about how they wanted to be defined. Not as I'm a good person and yes, you can trust me, but do the outcomes of what we do signal to the customer that we are a caring company, that we care about you. Without doing that work, Joey, you can't operationalize that in who you hire, in how you align your data, in how you deliver, and in how you reward your people. And that's what's missing, is the deliberateness of being really clear. Instead, we get survey results and other things and we play whack-a-mole. Let's fix 15 problems. That gives us a false positive because we've got a laundry list of stuff we're doing, but the customer's not feeling it. So I think this notion of really recognizing the human on the other end of our decision and reorienting our operating model and our people model around it has got to be where our work really is. And that's the hard part of the work.
What do we do about these giant companies when we're a smaller company? What do we do about these giant companies that, we think, well, gosh, we can never be like Amazon?
Well, I think the thing is about focus. One of the things that's important about a company that really thrives is they're really clear about what they will do and what they won't do, and about what their path is. One more example of Amazon is Stephanie, the gal who runs or ran or built Amazon Prime, had two key metrics that she looked at. Do we have what the customer set needs, and do we get it to them when we say we're going to get it to them? What we do in our businesses is we start looking at so many things and we lose focus. So clarity of purpose, Dan, becomes really, really critical. And also reorienting the business to the customer's life. We were working with Bombardier Aerospace, for example, the part of the company that sold private planes to high wealth individuals. And again, this is a bigger company, but it gets to the point of clarity. So as we were building the customer goal map, I call it a goal map, the sales and service part, people said, we want to deliver the sales and service experience. And I said, does your customer really want to have a sales and service experience? No, they want to have a keep me flying experience. As soon as we reoriented the work around the customer's goal and what the customer's trying to accomplish, now everybody can line up behind that without a lot of explanation. But that clarity took a while to get to, Dan. And a lot of companies, again, I know I keep beating the drum of thinking about this ahead of time. It's that angsting and thinking and wondering and deciding and being really clear. And, I grew up at Land's End for 10 years where it was around, we imagined the UPS driver handing you the box that had your kids' Christmas present in it. We imagine the feeling of pulling a turtleneck over your head for the first time. And that deliberate thinking is what's missing. That's the opportunity. That's when we get joy out of being able to craft an experience that nobody else can deliver.
Fantastic conversation here with Jeanne about all the things we could do. Let's recap how she did playing What Happened.
Well, Joey, in this game, correct answers are worth 500 points. Now, while Jeanne didn't get it correct on her first try, she used her extra life and answered it correctly, which means she earned 250 experience points. These points convert into dollars, which means, Jeannie, that you earned a $250 donation to the Alzheimer's Association. Nice job.
Well, thank you.
That concludes this episode of Experience Points. Check out more games with Jeanne and our other celebrity contestants at experiencepointsgame.com. That's experiencepointsgame.com. We'll see you soon for more examples of remarkable customer experiences here at Experience Points, presented by Avtex.
I love the service roulette phrase. I thought that was awesome because that's what happens all the time. We get, you call in and say, oh, I can't, let me transfer you to, the next level of help, whatever it might be. And boy, is that frustrating, right? You get bounced around until finally you might run into somebody, that has the answer, and it just becomes a total abuse of your time. And, and it certainly doesn't need to be like that.
Well, I think that we see some of when we're hearing Jeanne talk, which is one of my favorite things about her. She has a way of capturing shared experiences that we all have as being customers with these phrases that just make you go, "Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about." Right? And you see that in the titles of her books as well, with with the I love you more than my dog. That creates an emotional feeling that everybody gets, right? So same thing with the service roulette. We're like, yep, I have an experience that comes to mind right when she says that.
Well, and what we do know today is experiences are either directly or indirectly enabled through technology, and so that's point one. Point two is we also know that a great experience, customer experience, is directly correlated to a great employee experience. And so when we equip our employees, our staff people, our contact center agents with the right technologies, it really shifts their role, in a pretty demonstrable way.